مساء الخير. First, I would like to thank our panelists here who have come from different places, from Egypt, from Lebanon, of course, and Jordan, to share their thoughts about how to build an innovative, vibrant, profitable ecosystem and app developer community. Now, I'd like to have the audience actually engage with the panel. We have here industry experts, so please engage with them, ask tough questions. But since everything is on tweet, kind of be gentle. And just in case you guys didn't do it, I have prepared a list of questions that can stimulate this conversation. So you guys be prepared for an interesting debate. We're going to make it as challenging and as comprehensive as possible. Go into the details as much as we can. So hopefully we can get a good discussion out of this. Now, first, I think when we look at the ecosystem, just to give you a brief, since you have read the agenda, just to give you a brief of what the topic is about. So it's having the telecom operators working with the developers, working with content producers, and with commerce companies in order to create, deploy, and monetize these products and services in the marketplace. Now, that will benefit everyone, and specifically the consumer and the user who will end up having a good user experience. Now, as Qualcomm, basically, we have been working with key global market players on creating this app developer community, and we have done the same in the region. So we worked with a company like MT2 in Lebanon, with ARPU Plus in Egypt from OT Ventures, optimizing their applications on our platforms to give the user the best experience possible. Now, what we want the telecom operators to do basically is to take this platform and deploy it to the consumer at reasonable pricing, monetize off of it, and it's a win-win for everyone. So just to get into the topic, I would like to just make a quick introduction for the panel. Here we have Mahafz al-Alqab, of course, Marwan Hayek, CEO of Alpha, in his home court advantage. We've got Hatem Al-Duwaider, Vodafone CEO in Egypt. Ghassan Hasbani, who is CEO of STC International. And Abdel Malik Jaber, who is the founder and CEO of Mina Apps. So without further ado, I will start with basically just a quick question to get the conversation started. But I also like, based on what they heard in that video and presentation, to have each panelist give their thought about basically the content developer community and what the role the operator would play in creating that kind of environment. So we'll start with Marwan.
Okay. I guess before we start the heated debate, as announced, I would like to start with on a light, let's say, note. And on behalf of the Alpha team, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you, despite the cold weather that we have outside. I have one recommendation and one clarification before starting. The recommendation is that you make sure your phone is on Alpha in order to enjoy fast internet wherever you go in the city. And the clarification I have is that the free internet that we have, or we're enjoying in this event, is offered and powered by Alpha in collaboration with Sotitel and IDM. So this is the light introduction. To go back to the subject, I guess this is a debate that has been circulating or prevailing for the last couple of months. And in today's environment, smartphones are not anymore, and mobility is not anymore about making calls or accessing the emails on the go. Rather, it is a lifestyle for the consumer. And this represents for mobile operators and for the mobile industry a wealth of opportunities, especially with the uptake and the excitement that we have out there for mobile apps and for smartphones, especially tablets. As mobile industry, I guess we have a major responsibility in enabling the developer industry and community by providing the right infrastructure, sustainable and stable infrastructure that would enable them to carry on with their development and their ideas. Something that we are striving for nowadays because the introduction of mobile broadband has put a lot of pressure on the networks, and we've seen that data demand and traffic is almost doubling on a yearly basis, and is expected to double at least for the next couple of years. So this requires a huge amount of investment and efforts from the operator side to make sure that what the community and the developers community is requesting is always maintained with the right quality of service, which is a major hurdle that we are struggling to maintain at our level.
I think I will start by for the sake of people who are not from Egypt. So Vodafone in Egypt is the leading operator. We have over 36 million customers. We have a firm belief that data and applications and content is a key source for growth, and we have had that belief for a number of years. So we started a few years ago by acquiring some ISPs, and then afterwards we went ahead and bought Sarmadi Communication, which was one of the biggest producer of Arabic content and applications. With that, we have seen over the last years growth of data. So data, excluding SMS and other services, is now representing about 10% of our overall revenues, which is of course considerable. However, data consumes more of our investment than anything else. So it's important when we're talking with entrepreneurs and app developers and so on, that the importance of monetizing and being able to have a business model for these applications is very important, because a lot of people think that they have a cool app and we should give it to the customers for free, or we should have internet cheaper and so on. I think already prices, again, I don't have the data for all the region, but prices are going down, are very reasonable, and it's important to be able to recover the investments that are put. And to help do that, we have done a number of things. So other than the Sarmadi, we have started working with some of the successful apps that we've seen in the market in Egypt. So one of them is called Biyolak, and it was, I think, featuring in one of the ArabNet conferences in Cairo recently, which is about traffic and knowing what roads are blocked and what roads are not. And this is, of course, one of the big issues in Egypt. But we're also now starting to invest and help some of the startups that are developing apps related to mobile platforms that are useful on mobile and that can be monetized. And with that, we're also ready to invest capital in these companies, in addition to providing them with the resources to start up. So it's very important for us. But when you have an idea, it's important to understand that this idea needs to have certain value, needs to be monetized. It's not only good enough to say, I have an idea that I'll have hundreds of thousands of users, however, the business model doesn't generate revenue. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for opening this opportunity for us to be here. It's quite refreshing to be among so many creative and entrepreneurial people in one place, particularly in this part of the world, in the Middle East and in Lebanon. In reality, and what I'd like to touch upon is an attempt to answer some of the questions that came up in the video that was shown just before this session, and at the same time address the general questions to open the discussion. The way I see the world shaping up today, one of the biggest challenges or topics being discussed by telecom operators around the world is how do we deal with the sudden emergence of over-the-top players who basically expect telecom operators to invest billions of dollars. In fact, the mobile industry alone will be investing about $700 billion in infrastructure in the next 3 to 4 years around the world. While a lot of this value is actually being monetized and in many cases sucked away by over-the-top players. What works for telecom operators is definitely to partner with these people and you know, help create more value for everyone. But what's really interesting is to look at it from the other side. How can us as telecom operators help every individual in this room become a Google? If we take a world without barriers and with open opportunities, theoretically, everyone has an equal chance of becoming a Google or a Facebook or something of that sort. The role that we are playing, and we continue to look into strategically, and I would speak here for STC globally and in Saudi Arabia, is to make sure that people like yourselves are actually feeding the industry with ideas and concepts, and we both work together for the benefit of the entrepreneur and the telecom operator, but predominantly also for the benefit of society and economies that we all operate in, because this is where we live and this is the future that we all want to create. I heard in the video talk about IPTV channels. Yes, this is something that we are strongly committed to. We launched IPTV services recently, effectively last year, and this is growing significantly week on week, month on month, and we are finding a phenomenal traction in the market. This required a lot of work, a lot of infrastructure deployment, a lot of acceleration of broadband deployment in Saudi Arabia particularly, that has paved the way for a mass deployment of IPTV services. Then it is up to you, the people in the media industry, to be creative and to create more and more content, not just from the traditional media side, but from entrepreneurs who are entering the media world into the new media as well. When I heard also talk about payment facilitation and kind of carrier billing, where the operator is actually billing for the services provided by the application developer, this is definitely at the top of our agenda. And in fact, we are billing in the vicinity of over $100 million a year only in one single market. Here I'm talking about Saudi Arabia, but if we look at globally, our operations is billing in hundreds of millions of dollars on behalf of small to medium-sized application developers that we aggregate through our platforms and through our networks. And we are looking to continue to grow that part of the business in many ways, to encourage more and more content and application developers to run over our networks, as I said earlier, to make sure that at least there will be one of these million of people, or 2 or 100 if we can, who can create the next generation of over-the-top players. And this is what we would like to encourage. Then I heard talk about investments in content, Arabic content and other types of content in the region, not just content, but applications as well. And the role of the telecom operators as investors is also important, not just investors in our infrastructure, but as investors in startups, investors in new companies, innovative companies. And for us, we have also very recently launched a venture capital fund to do exactly that, particularly focused on the Arab world and on the ICT sector, to encourage innovation in this sector and be investors and co-investors with entrepreneurs. So that is the role as an investor for telecom operators. And last but not least, looking at new business models. It's very important for telecom operators not for us to think that we can do it all. In reality, there are many things that need to be accelerated, and we need to admit that. Similarly, governments may not be able to run telecom operators with the same efficiency as the private sector. And in many ways, telecom operators themselves may not be able to run certain activities and products and services and platforms with the same efficiency as smaller startups who are entrepreneurial. So we believed in that model, and we have created a company called Integral in Dubai that helps us actually build and manage the relationship with many thousands of content and application developers to aggregate, manage, and repurpose all sorts of content and applications to run across our telecom networks as well as other telecom operators in the region and beyond. So this is effectively a new business model of partnership that brought together the media world with the telecoms world in a joint venture operating outside both worlds to bring both worlds closer together to be able to deal with the entrepreneurs in a very effective and quick way. And this is extremely important to look at these new business models as ways to pave the way for faster growth, more innovation, and quicker response to industry and consumer and society demand. So I hope that will trigger some thoughts and discussions for today, and I'm happy to answer more questions about them. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm not going to make any promotion for any operator or I'm not on the side of the operators anymore. I've been free for 9 months, happily free for 9 months. And if I represent anybody, I represent the Arab Spring and not the Arab regimes. One comment that was mentioned this morning about TechCrunch, actually, our respected colleague said that it's far, far away, and that's why there's not enough coverage of what's happening in the MENA region. But I think it's the same distance for Fox News and CNN. If a tire of a car in Lebanon explodes, you'll see it in CNN and Fox. But if all these inventions and creative ideas that are happening, we don't see it because it's far. So I wish they will measure the distance. I wish they will measure the distance between Israel and the States. It's the same distance between Lebanon and the States. And I think if it's by distance, we should not see the same coverage they're having for Israel. They do have the positive coverage for Israel, but they don't have any positive coverage in our region. I don't blame them. I think I blame ourselves because we should have Arab Crunch that would buy TechCrunch rather than TechCrunch buying an entrepreneur or a setup in the Arab world. Anyway, touching on what was said and the interviews, I think we have an issue. I've been in the operator side for more than 10 years, and it's true that the prices are cheap, but it's not the relevant prices that are cheap. And I give you, just coming from Jordan to here, there were 2 ads in the newspapers by 2 operators in Jordan offering an army line. One operator offering 40,000 minutes for 4GDs. Now, if you make the math, 40,000 minutes, a month has 40,000 3 minutes. So who will talk for 40,000 minutes? This means the user is using the phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, the whole month. This is very cheap, of course. And the other operator responded by almost offering the same offer. I don't think this is relevant to the entrepreneurs and to the community by offering lowering the voice more and more and more. I think what is relevant is offering new services. And I'll share with you, frankly, when I introduced the concept of enterprise solutions at Zain, when I was the CEO of Zain Levant, CEO of Zain Group, I started talking about the enterprise solution and the new revenue streams, including security solutions, etc. And the comment I received, and I'll say it in the Kuwaiti dialect, and the response was very clear. This is not our business. We are a mobile operator. We are this. We are that. This is not our core business. And I think it's wrong. I think operators need, and I'm happy that my dear colleague Hasbani is saying that we have to change the business model, because we do have to change the business model, and we have to move from the business model of selling access to selling services. We still, unfortunately, most operators are stuck with the old business model, because I'm sure all of you remember when we used to pay for the password and username. Actually, this is still the same in terms of the mindset, even though we are at the 4G. But we are thinking we have the 4G infrastructure, but we have the pre-2G mindset when it comes to offering the services. And I think this is not the right thing for operators themselves. I think operators can change the business model, and the time is right now. If they don't change it, it will be very, very negative, and the investments that's been talked about, you would not have the revenue to recover such investments, and it will be a pity, because that will hurt the entrepreneurship community. And we should not look at the competition in our markets, Alpha competing with MTC, or Mobile competing with STC. I think the most serious competition is the competition that's coming from outside the industry, from outside the region. This is much more serious. With Skype being the largest operator now, this is a serious competition, and operators must find a way, and they can, to deal with such competition. So I think there is a need to change the business model that the operators are using right now.
Okay, thank you. So just to get started with the first round of questions, I just saw a comment on the Twitter feed here saying that while the rest of the world is deploying LTE, we are still in the 3G phase. Now, one thing I have to agree with when Mr. Sahnawi mentioned that we have HSPA Plus, which is a very advanced technology. And 3G still has a long way to go as far as lifetime. And LTE is more or less a complementary technology that serves a specific purpose on the data side. So having achieved that major milestone of launching 3G, which is something we should all be proud of here in Lebanon, going back to your comments, it will take significant effort to move the consumer from a voice-based usage to a data-based usage behavior in order for you to become more profitable and increase the ARPU that will drive bigger revenue to the government. So that will require significant investment on marketing, significant investment on optimizing the network, because I have to agree today the network is still fairly shady when it comes to performance and still requires a lot of work when it comes to optimizing it. And significant investment on the application and the content side. I mean, we tend to bundle both, but there is an importance of having content and applications in order to stimulate demand. So just simply, what are you going to do?
Okay. Just to complement what His Excellency said during his interview, 3G Plus or HSPA Plus was launched in October in Lebanon, and we are still in the early stage of rolling out the network, and this network would be complete in the next 2 to 3 months, covering the entire country. What's specific about this network and this rollout is the speed that we are offering in terms of design and dimensioning, which can go up to 21 megabit per second, and in some places to 42 megabit per second, again, theoretical speeds. However, the actual experience so far has shown us that we can easily navigate at around 2 to 3 megabit per second on Alpha network on the HSPA Plus network. So this compared to what you see in other places, and mainly in the region, I guess we are not that bad in terms of performance. It is true that the network is not ready yet, or is not optimized 100%, which is part of the ecosystem that we have today in the country, because let's not look at only at the access part, which is the 3G network. Let's look at the entire environment, starting from the internet gateway to the backbone, the national backbone that is still under deployment. It will take another 1 year, as clearly said by His Excellency. So all these parameters do contribute to the fact that we don't have an optimal infrastructure in place. Second, the consumer in general and the Lebanese consumer in specific is skeptical by nature. It will take us time to change their perception and to convince the consumer that we have an infrastructure in place that is equivalent, if not better, to what you find in other places and other markets. And we are offering a performance or an experience that is quite similar to what you see or you get in other places as well. So this effort is still ongoing, and it will take some time before the consumer is convinced and really do see the value of the money he's paying for the service. On the network side, as we all know, the investment has to continue. We cannot just invest on 3G today and then stop investing in the network. This needs to be modernized all the time on a yearly basis in a very constant way. And sooner than expected, we will move to the next phase, which is having a sort of LTE in Lebanon before end of year, hopefully. So this will position us again in terms of infrastructure at par with most of the networks, if not at an advanced stage compared to them. Today, the experience we have so far is that our base and data subscribers has increased by around 70% since we launched, which is 5 months ago. And 70% is a substantial number in Lebanon in terms of growth. This positions us at a level of countries like South Africa in terms of mobile broadband penetration, or even Turkey, or countries around the Middle East and North Africa region. The usage has also increased per customer. People are using more and more data and mobile broadband, and mainly mobile internet, which is on their handsets. On the marketing side, which is the other part of the equation, it's true that pricing is still a major barrier for people to subscribe or to get access to mobile broadband. However, there are significant efforts ongoing right now with the Ministry of Telecommunication to review our pricing structure and to come up with the right packages and bundles that would enable the youth segment to be part of this mobile broadband wave and story. And these offers would go to the market soon, hopefully in the next few weeks. On the devices side as well, almost 40% of the base we have today has got a smartphone or a tablet in place. And there is an important and an ambitious plan by the Ministry of Telecommunication, which is a nationwide initiative on the tablet side, which is Tablet for Everyone. Maybe His Excellency didn't remember to mention it. This strategic initiative is going to boost the tablet penetration in Lebanon, and consequently is going to boost the mobile usage, the mobile broadband usage on the cellular side as well. So this, again, brings me back to the point that on the infrastructure side, we need to be ready to cater for such tremendous growth and uptake on the data side. Apps today in Lebanon, I agree that the local content is not available yet, and it's not really abundant. However, we have initiatives also in the pipeline, and we will, by end of this year, hopefully have in place a cloud environment whereby local consumers would be able to interface and talk to local developers through this cloud environment, and would enable us to have local content, and mainly Arabic content, available to our consumers in Lebanon and in the region. So this initiative, again, would hopefully take us to the next level in terms of mobile uptake, and convincing the consumer that we are taking the right steps towards meeting his expectations. Because we need to remember as well, as already said by many people, the next, or the way forward is not anymore our choice as mobile operator. It is dictated by the end user and the consumer. And we see around that it's not anymore about selling infrastructure or technology. It's really about coming up with the right system and the right strategy and the right service to the consumer that would meet his expectations and push him to join our community.
Okay, excellent. So I think if from the audience you have some questions to challenge what's been just said, if you just hold on to it, if you just hold on to it, just 2 minutes until, because I have some interesting questions here. Marwan mentioned the establishment or established base of smartphones and tablets of 40% or so. What we have seen in Egypt, there is a big push around smartphones. I mean, your competitor launched their own white label smartphones under their own brand. We have seen a lot of new brands starting to show under the smartphone, and it's getting established. With Vodafone having more than 36 million subscribers, like you said, how do you plan to use the smartphone base? And how do you plan to drive the development of the community, of the application and the content on smartphones? And how is your relationship with the OS vendors and the service providers like Android and Microsoft and other big networking companies fit within that context of smartphone usage?
Okay, I think that smartphones, I totally agree, are essential to grow data usage because apps make it much easier for people to consume data. Vodafone in Egypt were actually the first by a long margin to bring RIM and BlackBerry to Egypt. Afterwards, also the iPhone. We brought it in early. I think one of our competitors brought it close enough. Just a few days ago, we actually did what we believe is the official launch of Android in Egypt, working with Google. So we had a joint event with Google and with Samsung, where we introduced an initiative where we have a huge lineup of Android phones together that start from also a self-branded Android phone at 500 Egyptian pounds, which is about $85, all the way to the more sophisticated Samsung phones. And what we do is, it's not only a price or a lineup. What we're offering now in most of our flagship stores is the ability to have the customers to go there, take different phones in their hands, play with them, ask experts in the store about the apps, ask them what they're interested in, and actually try the product out in the store. What we've also introduced as part of this experiential program is a promotion where customers can have the service free for 3 months if they buy one of these devices. So we're taking it very serious. We're working with all the different platforms. I think one of the key barriers that we had until a couple of years ago was the Arabic version of most of the operating systems was always delayed compared to the Latin-based versions. I think this issue is now behind us. All the different operating systems, be it Microsoft, and again, we did a big initiative when Windows 7 was introduced in Egypt, be it BlackBerry, be it iOS from Apple, or be it Android, all of them are supporting Arabic native now. And I think they are also starting to see the importance of the Middle Eastern market. So the answer to your question, absolutely, smartphones are a cornerstone of the strategy for data. We have seen number of Android phones, for example, double in almost 9 months, and we expect them to double again before end of 2012. So, and this is just because the statistic I just used a couple of days ago. So the growth is phenomenal. The prices are getting to be in the right kind of domain for the users in the Middle East. And I think that we will see a big explosion number of smartphones and therefore in-apps and data usage.
So are we going to see a Vodafone smartphone, just like we see a
Yes,
Mobility smartphone?
there are a number of them, and in Egypt we have already introduced one at 499 Egyptian pounds.
Okay, great. Next question to Ghassan. You mentioned two things, the creation of Integral, which has been in operations for more than a year now, and the VC fund. So my question about Integral, can you give us specifics about the role it plays with the content community and the app developer community? And the question on the VC fund, it was announced more or less like a global fund with a specific focus on Middle East ventures. Why is there the global components? So why are we looking at, let's say, US or European ventures when there is plenty of innovation and entrepreneurship here in the region to invest in?
Sure. As I said earlier, it's about looking at two ways of encouraging a wider range of people to be active in creativity and in development, and at the same time in ensuring that this part of the world taps into the latest and the most advanced possible thinking and intellectual property from around the world. There are two reasons for that. So creating the vehicle, which is the content and applications company outside the realm of the structure of a telecoms operator, has proved to be extremely effective in speed of response and interaction with a very large number of developers and creators and smaller businesses. Because by nature, the structure of telecom operators is designed to deal with large-scale infrastructure deployment. And it's very difficult to adapt it in such a short period of time to deal with a multitude, hundreds and thousands of very small companies and startups who are creating and developing something new, who may not necessarily want to go through an RFP process or through a pre-qualification process to be able to provide their services. So to create this flexible platform for them. That's on the side of content and applications. On the side of the VC, as I said, it's actually predominantly focused on this part of the world to encourage entrepreneurship in this part of the world, but also without missing out on any specific areas that may not be very active in this part of the world, but nevertheless, we can actually benefit by tapping into them and by gaining the intellectual property access to those ideas, who will be brought into the Middle East and then further developed and create value for the Middle East, because you won't be able to find everything in this geography, of course, naturally. And that's why we did not limit our ambition to the region. However, the priority and the main focus remains the region, because there's a lot of untapped potential that needs encouragement and support to be able to. I was trying to avoid the use of the word ecosystem, but you know, I saw it was like the most used word today. But to be able to genuinely create a very open ecosystem rather than a closed ecosystem. So you do that by creating the right platform, by providing the right access, by creating the ability to bill for the products and services that are being developed and applications, and by at the same time investing directly in them to close the loop on this whole activity. And that's why we have this dual approach to business development, and what we believe is the core now of our business development activities.
Okay, good. And that's why actually I've been using the word developer community rather than ecosystem to balance things out. So, Abdul Malik, coming from the background of an operator and now you're on the apps side, and based on what you've heard, the comments from the top leaders here in the telecom industry, what are your thoughts? Is there anything they need to change? Is there anything they need to do more of to drive the ecosystem community?
Well, definitely there is some change, but let's look at the figures. The mobile penetration in the Arab region, in a country like Saudi Arabia, it's above 200%, and it's reaching about 170% in Emirates, and in Jordan about 130%. So we all know that this is a mature market, and the voice industry in all over the Arab world, except few small markets like Sudan and Iraq, it's a mature market, and there's not much room for further activities in the voice domain. If you talk about broadband, the number of broadband subscribers in the Arab region is about 70 million. So there's a huge room for growth. And I would focus on the low-cost handheld devices, smart handheld devices, more than the smartphones. Fine, but the purchase power for the smartphones, not many Arabs can afford to buy the iPhones and the Blackberries, but I know Qualcomm is heavily involved in a project in Africa where you are talking about smart handheld devices for in the range of $70, $60. This is the kind of right price to introduce internet, wireless broadband in a massive way in the Arab region. And I think this is an area where operators should invest a lot to introduce wireless broadband connectivity to the largest number possible of Arab users. Now, if I come to content, also let me bring you a very specific example. You hear the name Marca VIP, and actually a lot of the presentations that were made this morning proves that. Marca VIP is the leading online store in the Arab world. They both have English and Arabic. The actual transactions, 80% happens on the Arabic portal, not the English portal, which is an evidence that Arabic is key. It's an important language, which brings me to the conclusion that we should focus on Arabic content. The only way we can really focus on the Arabic content is having homegrown initiatives. With all due respect to what Ghassan mentioned, I think there are lots of possibilities to have initiatives led by Arab talents who could really deliver to Integral or to any other operator who is interested to build an app store much more powerful than any other experts coming from outside, because there are uniquenesses and there are special needs in the Arab culture that are not the same, because all the applications you see outside, what Apple does and Google and everybody, we come at the end of the list, even though that Arabic now is supported by the operating systems. But if you look at the new releases, when you would see the new release approaching the Arab world, just watch the iPad 4. When it will come to the Arab region, it will be almost the last country or the last region that will witness the release of the iPad 4. So I do believe we have to encourage local initiatives, and this can be done, and there's enough talent. Just looking around this conference, you will discover that there's enough talent. And do I believe that having an app store that under the umbrella of an operator is the right strategy? Honestly, I don't. I would have preferred to see few operators, STC, Zain, QTEL, etc., joining forces and creating a fund to support or invest in one of the local initiatives to create an app store or several app stores. You don't need to have one app store. You could have 10 app stores in the Arab world supported by the operators with lots of funds invested in local development and Arabic development which will fulfill the requirements and the needs of the Arab consumers. If I look at my daughter, she's 3 years old, and she drives the iPad, and she spends hours on the iPad, and she's using most of the apps coming from App Store that has nothing to do with my culture. I don't mind that she would watch a lot of these apps coming from App Store, but I would have loved to see applications coming from local developers. I think there's a lot that can be done. There's a long way to go, and I really believe that operators have the keys to make this initiative successful. A, in terms of the low-cost handheld devices. B, through investing heavily in developing and promoting content. It was not long time ago when the business model, if a guy who has a content would approach an operator, any operator, first of all, the revenue share would have been 80-20, of course 80 for the operator. It's changing now, but that was not long time ago. B, it would be a cycle of almost a year before that developer would pass all the requirements, if he will pass these requirements, to be given the leverage and the privilege of being hosted by the operator. I think there are changes. I honestly don't believe that there are enough, and I believe that with this hype of the .com and what we are seeing in terms of initiatives in Jordan, in Lebanon, in Egypt, with all these huge communities of local developers and entrepreneurs and startups, and I think it's a great opportunity for operators to capture it, and if they don't capture it, I'm afraid, once again, we will witness what happened in the Arab world in the past, where we become a consumer market, only a consumer market. Will continue to be a consumer market, also in the domain of .com, without any value added from the Arab world. I think we have an opportunity to be leaders, at least in our own market, and the operators, I would say, hold 50% of the responsibility.
Okay, so just to ask you another question then, we have seen in the cases like in the US where Amazon, which is an online retailer, launched their own Android application store. And now we have seen Google also launch their store as well for application and gaming to be downloaded on Android and smartphones. So do you see a similar situation in the Middle East where a potential leader that could be an online retailer or it could be a new player in the marketplace can take advantage of the gaps that exist with the certain telecom operators not offering the full range of services to fill that gap and take ownership of that space? So, yeah, if you want to take it, or Hassan.
You want to answer this?
Either.
Okay, sorry. Okay, now there are few obstacles in the Arab world, and unfortunately, and we have to be fair. I said 50% of the responsibility is the operators. The other 50% is regulators and governments, because we are not one regulatory regime. Ghassan talked about the payment, which is a major obstacle that prevents developers and online activities. Once again, if I go to Marca VIP, 85% of the money is cash on delivery. You know, you're talking about an online store. The only way for them to actually collect their money is cash on delivery. Why? Because the regulatory system in the Arab world does not allow the e-payments or the equivalent of PayPal in the Arab world because of central bank regulations, etc. A lot of operators try to launch mobile wallets and mobile payment systems. They got stuck with the central banks preventing them from basically implementing such solutions in full scale. Which means for any initiative for app stores or mobile application initiatives or pan-Arab development initiatives, we need to see major changes in the mindset of the Arabic regulators. And if I tell you frankly, going once again to the mobile payments, which is one of the key requirements for the success of app stores and the e-payments. If you go to any central bank in any country in the Arab world and you approach him as an operator saying, I want to launch a service to basically offer a mobile wallet or a mobile payment services to my customers, I can assure you from now you will have a negative answer from every single central bank in every Arab country for no reason. I mean, if you even ask for the justifications, why I cannot do that, you will have all kind of answers, but none of them make sense. If you go to the prepaid cards, you will get the same answer, even though you can go to the US and you can buy prepaid cards from any store, 5, 10, 11 prepaid cards easily. That's not the case in the Arab world. Once again, you will get the same kind of 10 reasons from the central banks. None of them make sense. So I think the other 50% is dependent on the Arab regulators, both telecom regulators and maybe fiscal regulators who would help the operators to fulfill their 50%.
Okay, so now we'll open it to the audience. And I think we'll start with Naji, who had his hand at the beginning.
Hi, my name is Naji Bouhabib. I'm the founder of MT2 and Apps2U, our new subsidiary for apps. First of all, I would like to thank you, Jay, and thank Qualcomm team for the support you're giving that for last years. Thank you also, Marwan, for the business from Alpha. I just wanted to say a comment on what Mr. Hasbani was saying at the first beginning. We definitely value all the investments that the operators in general are doing and the $700 billion. And we'd like you also, our interest is that you continue investing in this network and enhancing it, LTEs, every technology. This is opening horizons for us to innovate more and produce more services and et cetera. The question is, we've been witnessing last couple of years that operator groups are investing and incorporating aggregators. And besides the aggregation function, we've been witnessing also some appetite into entering the services business and going directly to content owners and even investing in some technology at the services level, mobile services level. My question is this a consequence of the change of the model on the carrier side, and what is the strategy so we can follow?
Look, we are in a very fast changing environment, no doubt. And here, the business model will probably change every few years. But as content and applications reach a mass scale, 10 years ago, we were probably dealing with a handful of aggregators, and a telecom operator would be able to deal with 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, 10, fine. But then when you start getting into the tens and the hundreds category of aggregators, pretty much aggregating more or less the same content, the ability of a telecom operator to handle multiple relationships is quite limited. While, as I said earlier, the mindset and structure and business model of telecom operators is to actually create products and services and build infrastructure and run major programs, either locally or globally, the need to change this model and the structure of the relationship starts to arise. And then 10 years ago, we were aggregating SMS content, basically. 5 years ago, we were still aggregating SMS content. Today, you're aggregating television, you're aggregating still SMS, you're aggregating multimedia content, and so many other things that need to be aggregated in terms of applications, features, etc. So there's a huge and vast array of activities taking place. And instead of limiting them by the speed at which telecom operators can react, operators are going in the direction of creating specialized entities that support their business model and also enhance the capability of the creators to be able to interact with very large operators. Also, there's a large risk that operators are taking on their account, which is billing by itself. Because as you know, postpaid billing is not 100% collected. And there's a percentage that always remains uncollected or costs a lot of money to collect. Whilst now the content developers are receiving their money, the operators are taking a big risk on collecting that money on their behalf. So there's also an investment in that side of the business that operators are taking into account in their business model. This entire value chain is changing, no doubt. And it is extremely important as a priority for us to tap into the best possible content that suits our customer needs and enhances their expectations and widens their horizons, while developing the widest possible community of creators on the applications and content side, and helping them through specialized channels to reach us in a very effective and efficient way, rather than go through the system of a large telecom operator process, basically.
Introduction and intervention. On the services and on the pricing side, I guess we will come up with new products and new bundles during the course of the year, whereby there will be a certain number of minutes, data, SMS, etc., against a certain fee per month. However, addressing your specific or answering your specific question, the scheme we have today is as it is, that if you want to have a postpaid line, there is a monthly subscription fee, regardless if it's used or not, and then you get charged per minute or per SMS per activity you do. There is a possibility for you, if you travel a lot and your line is not operational all the time, is to freeze that line against a minimal fee per month to keep it alive and active on the system. Some part of your question was related to information given or data given by you to the mobile operator. I guess each country has its specific environment, and we do live and operate in a very complex environment whereby security is a major concern to all of us. So fortunately or unfortunately, we have to go through that process of providing enough information and details about yourself as an individual in order for us to be able to keep track of our customers all the time. So on the pricing side, I guess unfortunately I don't have a positive answer to you, because this is the scheme we have today. There isn't a possibility today to have a zero cost for a line that you would keep alive for a year. Hopefully, we'll be able to maybe address this specific need at a later stage.
You brought up a good question, subject. It's the relationship between the operator and over-the-top players. And how do you go about and build this partnership with them? Can you shed some light on this, and also on the fact there are some players, we call them UTT player, under the table, like a SIP client or a player that there's not much you can do about it, and there's no way you can create a partnership. How do you deal with them?
Yeah, for the large players over the top, it's pointless to try to block each other and fight effectively trying to destroy each other's value. We'll always continue to invest in infrastructure, and this is why we're in business. They will always continue to invest in accessing as many people over that infrastructure as possible. The partnership part is finding ways of sharing that value together. In a way, what do they need from telecom operators? They need the local access, definitely. They need the local insights in the community. And telecom operators are looking for also maintaining a certain level of relationship with their customers directly. You take, for example, the ideas of search engines and people like Google launching specific products for small, medium businesses. These could be launched in partnership with telecom operators, where operators have the relationship with the businesses in the local market. Google provides them with certain applications that are relevant to their businesses, and both together go in partnership to address these small, medium businesses. The benefit to Google, they get a database, an accurate database of all the local businesses in each market. The benefit to telecom operators, they can differentiate themselves by having this relationship with Google and by offering a value-added service. Now, if there are smaller players who can specifically develop applications that sit on top of the telecom service that can be offered together with telecom operators to the enterprise community, to the small and medium businesses in the region, then a solid partnership can be formed, because one of them, particularly the operator, has access and has the channel. And there is still a lot that can be done in terms of creativity on the service layer that sits on top of the enterprise connectivity services that operators are doing. Obviously, there's a lot that's being done by operators at the service level. There's a lot of pricing, restructuring, and offering that suits these people. But I'm sure there are smaller companies that will emerge and are emerging and have emerged that can deliver these value-added services. I don't call them value-added services, but effectively valuable services to enterprises and small, medium companies that could also go in partnership with telecom operators to deliver a high-value differentiation from other operators in a given market. Now, that either is done directly through the operator or through the entities that are created by the operator to handle the service layer and support the operator with a service layer like the one I mentioned earlier. It depends on the size of the opportunity. It depends on the multitude of potential producers of these creative services as well. So this is where the partnership is important. Nobody can do anything alone. No developer can survive on his own or her own without access to the channel. No operator can survive on their own in the future without being very smart about how they deal with developers and creators around them to differentiate their service layers from other operators, because we're all in the business of deploying infrastructure in the end. The ones who will win are the ones who will partner better with the creators. I like to call them creators because they're creative people and they create new business models, to partner well with the creators at all levels to differentiate their services. This revenue stream will always remain a small revenue stream compared to other infrastructure connectivity revenues that operators will generate. However, it will be a very important stream to protect, maintain, and grow the traditional or the connectivity revenues that telecom operators are doing. And I do agree with the concept that we need to innovate in services as well, but still, this innovation itself is a prerequisite now for creating value and generating more revenues for telecom operators on the connectivity itself, because this is still the base of access to markets.
Okay, unfortunately, this is all the time we have. I would like to thank our esteemed panelists here for their valuable insights. And we call this a wrap.